You remember it perfectly. The room, the conversation, the exact words that were said. You can see it when you close your eyes, the lighting, the expression on their face, the precise emotional weight of the moment. You would swear, under oath, that this is exactly what happened. And there is a significant chance you would be wrong. Not lying. Not confused. Wrong in a way that feels, from the inside, indistinguishable from absolute certainty. Because memory does not work the way you think it does. It is not a recording. It is not a file you pull up and play back unchanged. Every time you remember something, you are not retrieving the past. You are rebuilding it. And every act of rebuilding changes the structure slightly, like a photocopy of a photocopy, degrading a little more each time, while feeling, paradoxically, more solid and more certain with every pass. This is one of the most unsettling findings in the history of psychology. And once you understand it, you will never trust your own memory in quite the same way again. The foundational work here belongs to psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, who spent decades demonstrating that memory is not just imperfect, it is actively constructive, meaning it builds itself from fragments, expectations, and outside information, often without your awareness. In one of her most famous studies, Loftus showed participants a film of a car accident, then asked some of them how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other, and others how fast the cars were going when they merely contacted each other. The word choice alone changed the participants' memory of the event. Those asked about smashing reported higher speeds, and, more disturbingly, were more likely to falsely remember seeing broken glass at the scene, when no glass was present in the film at all. A single word had reached backward in time and rewritten what people believed they had witnessed. This effect has a name, the misinformation effect. And it does not require malice or trickery to occur. It happens through completely ordinary mechanisms: a leading question, a conversation with someone else who remembers the event differently, a news report, even your own subsequent thoughts about what happened. Each time you access a memory, it becomes temporarily malleable, like wet clay, before being restored. And whatever new information is present during that restorage gets incorporated into the memory itself, seamlessly, with no internal flag telling you that anything has changed. The memory feels exactly as vivid and exactly as certain after the contamination as it did before. This is why eyewitness testimony, despite being one of the most persuasive forms of evidence in a courtroom, is also one of the most unreliable. Loftus's research, along with decades of subsequent work, has been directly responsible for hundreds of wrongful convictions being overturned through DNA evidence, cases where witnesses were absolutely certain, where their confidence was unwavering, and where they were simply, catastrophically wrong. Confidence and accuracy, it turns out, are almost entirely unrelated. A person can be 100% certain of a memory that is 100% false. But the implications extend far beyond courtrooms. They extend into every relationship you have ever had, every argument about what was actually said, every cherished memory of your own childhood. Neuroscientist Karim Nader took this even further with a discovery that reshaped our understanding of how memory works at a biological level. He found that every time a memory is recalled, it must be biologically restabilized, a process called reconsolidation, and during this restabilization window, the memory is vulnerable to alteration. If you block the reconsolidation process with certain drugs, the memory can be weakened or even erased. This means memory is not stored once and preserved. It is, in a very real sense, rewritten every single time you think about it. The act of remembering is also, simultaneously, an act of editing. This explains something almost everyone has experienced without understanding it: the way a frequently retold story changes, almost imperceptibly, over years. The vacation memory that gets a little more dramatic each time you tell it at a dinner party. The childhood memory that has somehow merged with a photograph you saw of the event, so that you are no longer sure if you remember the moment itself or simply remember the picture. The argument you remember winning, that the other person remembers entirely differently, with neither of you lying, both of you having reconstructed a self-serving version of events that has, over time, become indistinguishable from fact in your own mind. Psychologists call this phenomenon source monitoring error, the failure to correctly identify where a piece of information actually came from. Did you experience this, or did someone describe it to you so vividly that it became indistinguishable from experience? Did this happen, or did you see it in a film, read it in a book, dream it, imagine it during a moment of anxious rumination? The brain is remarkably bad at tagging the origin of information once it has been integrated into memory. This is also why false memories can be implanted with surprising ease. In further research, Loftus successfully convinced a significant percentage of study participants that they had been lost in a shopping mall as a child, an event that never happened, simply by having a trusted family member describe the false event alongside several true ones. Participants did not just believe the false memory. They elaborated on it. They added details. They described how frightened they had felt, what the mall looked like, who eventually found them. None of it was real. All of it felt real. So why does memory work this way? Why would evolution build a system this unreliable? So why does memory work this way? Why would evolution build a system this unreliable? The answer is that memory was never designed to be a perfect archive. It was designed to be useful. Your brain does not need a precise recording of every event you have experienced. It needs a flexible, generalizable understanding of patterns, what situations tend to be dangerous, who tends to be trustworthy, what tends to work and what tends to fail. A memory system optimized for survival prioritizes the gist over the details, the emotional lesson over the literal transcript. This is why you can forget exactly what someone said to you while remembering, with total clarity, how they made you feel. The feeling was the useful information. The words were just the delivery mechanism. This reconstructive quality of memory is not a flaw to be corrected. It is, in fact, deeply connected to one of your most valuable cognitive abilities, imagination. Neuroscientist Daniel Schacter has shown that the same neural machinery used to reconstruct the past is used to construct the future, to imagine scenarios that have not happened yet, to plan, to simulate possible outcomes. The malleability that makes your memory unreliable is the same malleability that makes you capable of mentally rehearsing a difficult conversation before it happens, or imagining a life you have not yet built. A perfect, unchangeable memory system would also be a mind incapable of imagining anything beyond what it had literally already experienced. This does not mean you should distrust every memory you have. Most memories, especially well-rehearsed and emotionally significant ones, retain a reasonably accurate gist even as details shift. But it does mean something important: certainty is not evidence. The vividness of a memory, the emotional conviction you feel when you recall it, the absolute confidence that this is exactly how it happened, none of these guarantee accuracy. They simply guarantee that your brain has successfully reconstructed something that feels real, regardless of whether it corresponds precisely to what actually occurred. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement about a shared memory, with a sibling about a childhood event, with a partner about an old argument, with yourself about who you used to be, consider holding your own certainty a little more loosely. Not because your memory is broken, but because it was never built to be a courtroom transcript. It was built to help you survive, to help you imagine, to help you carry forward not the literal past, but a usable version of it. The past you remember is not the past that happened. It is the past you have, so far, found most useful to believe.